A lot of people are scared away by the complexities posed by a poem. It is not prose, and it does not sound like prose, and this poses immediate problems for enjoying poetry. In this video, I want to look at a poem by John Berryman, suggest a few ways of reading it, and then look at how other artists have responded to it. I will now show a recording of Berryman reading the poem. This is part of an interview conducted in 1967 in a pub in Dublin, and Berryman was heavily drunk by the time he came to read this poem. However, this shouldn't stop us from appreciating his beautiful reading of it.
Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so. After all, the sky flashes, the great sea yearns, we ourselves flash and yearn, and moreover, my mother told me as a boy, repeatingly, ever to confess you're bored means you have no inner resources. I conclude now I have no inner resources because I am heavy bored. Peoples bore me. Literature bores me, especially great literature. Henry bores me with his plights and gripes, as bad as Achilles. Who loves people and a valiant art, which bores me, and the tranquil hills and gin looked like a drag, and somehow a dog has taken itself and its tail considerably away into mountains or sea or sky, leaving behind me, Wag.
The first thing that one may notice is how fragmented the poem is, how much of it sounds so unlike a poem. Berryman does this a lot in his Dream songs, his most popular poetry sequence, and here we can notice a lot of phrases that sound like common speech. The opening line, life, friends, is boring, is a great example of this. By calling us friends, Berryman is including the reader in a small circle, and thus his confession of boredom sounds more genuine. The conflict of the poem is that we don't know how much is genuine, how much is irony. Berryman mocks a lot of things in this poem. One of them is what poetry is supposed to be about, as he lists the reasons not to be bored. After all, the sky flashes, the great sea yearns, we ourselves flash and yearn. So it is also a poem about what a poem should be. He also mocks his mother saying, "Inner resources" is capitalized, and I repeat it, drawing attention to it and slightly ridiculing it. He also talked about Achilles, the Greek hero, but in terms of an adolescent boy with his plights and gripes. Yet other parts sound profoundly confessional to me. The last stanza, for example, and particularly the ending with the friendly "leaving behind me, Wag." Even a dog has abandoned the poet, and we are left only with an image of him alone in the world. The poem works through these two tones of genuine confession and mocking, which lends the mocking aspects a quality of bitter resentment, the resentment of someone who is unhappy himself. Berryman captures the intensity of boredom incredibly, but the very phrase "intensity of boredom" sounds paradoxical, for boredom is often the lack of intensity. Those are the conflicts at the center of this poem, and Berryman works through them without giving preference to one reading over another, nor without giving any clear resolutions, but a farewell as the image of the poet departs in the distance. Now I will read an interpretation of this poem by the poet Mary Ruefle, included in her article titled "I Remember, I Remember." I remember reading John Berryman's Dream Song 14 in my 20s with its famous opening words, "Life, friends, is boring." I remember being struck by its wit, irony, playfulness, delight. It is the kind of poem that students read aloud to each other in a pool of laughter and admiration, and there is nothing wrong with that, for it reinforces their senses of cynicism and superiority, and it is crucial at that age we find a like-minded group to whom we can belong. I remember rereading the poem, not for the second time, some 30 years later, and being struck by its excruciating pain, which is entirely without irony. Many persons who knew Berryman have remarked that he spoke, always, without irony, which means, simply, that he always meant what he said. If you are going through a particularly stable period of your life, and you encounter his bleakest statements, you will react with chagrin and disbelief, as if listening to a diabolus jester. If you are going through a particularly unstable period of your life, the straightforward articulation of suffering that has already twisted and dislocated this bearer renders a tension that will very nearly kill you. But I did not know this then. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I very much look forward to reading your opinions and interpretations in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching.